morning, this is Aaron again in Buenos Aires with LatinFinance. With me now is Horacio Aguilar, a Managing Director at Puente, one of today's sponsors. Horacio, thank you for your time this morning. I'd like to start with corporate financing and the capital markets in Argentina. Obviously, it's no surprise that after the sovereign issued a $16.5 billion bond, the sub-sovereigns have followed. I'd like to know what that means for the corporates in Argentina and what opportunities that presents for them.
Well, that's actually very good news. What's happened, with the sovereign first, of course, and then with the sub-sovereigns. I mean, the new issue by the sovereign was a huge success. 16 billion was the largest EM issuance ever. It was, I think, one of the largest books ever, not only EM but global. So lots of interest for Argentina right now. And that was actually confirmed the last 2 or 3 weeks with actually 3 provinces going out to the market. All of them books oversubscribed, lots of interest. So we know and we are seeing corporates getting ready to issue, and the interest is there. And also the type of investors, I mean, the type of investors is probably the same, but they have different funds also. So there's a dedicated sovereign or quasi-sovereign funds. And so the demand for corporates hasn't been satisfied yet. Right. And usually corporates trade at a spread over the sovereign. Yeah. So for investors that are interested in Argentine credit, through the corporate issuance, get a spread over the sovereign. So there's going to be interest.
So with that in mind, it's interesting you mentioned that. I mean, is there any chance that Argentinian corporates have been or are in danger of being crowded out by the plethora of sovereign related issuances of late?
Well, given what's happened and the amount of interest we've seen for the sovereign, and again confirmed by the provinces, I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of demand for Argentina in general. Then, of course, it's going to depend on the credit conditions and on each issuer. But the demand is there, and again, with every new issue we've seen books 3, 4, 5 times oversubscribed. So there's going to be more sub-sovereign, more provincial issuances. Okay. But the demand, there's specific investors that also need access to corporate grades. So there's going to be demand.
Okay. And with that in mind, also, I mean, what's the pricing environment, particularly for corporates? I mean, the yields have been quite tight of late for emerging market credits. Yep. How do you see that transferring to potential corporate issuances?
Well, that's part of the answer of why there's been so much interest for Argentina recently. Okay. What's happened is that international investors are seeing this change of environment in Argentina, and at the same time, Argentina trading at levels, still wide to its comparables. If you compare what's, the trading levels of Argentina neighbors, Brazil, Uruguay, Bolivia, Paraguay, they all trade at levels between, 4 to 6%. Sure. Argentina, the government is trading at 7.5% for 10 years. So given it's, on the other part of the cycle and still room for spread compression, there's a lot of interest. And Argentina is also trading very well if you compare its comparables in terms of rating. Argentina has a rating of B-, and if you look at other issuers with that rating, they are mainly issuers from Africa, and they trade at levels of 8, 9%. Argentina trades at 7%.
Sure.
So the market is seeing Argentina very positively.
So with that in mind also, do you see, you talk about having B- ratings. I mean, in the next, say, this is a bit speculative, but in the next 12 months, what are the opportunities for upgrades for corporates and the sovereign and quasi?
Yeah, that's going to be key. And for that, we're going to need to see, or actually the credit ratings are they want to see changes and confirmation of this, macroeconomic variable stabilization, things that, this government has inherited from the past, in terms of, high inflation, instability in terms of effects, fiscal deficit, If the government starts or actually continues to give good signals in those fronts and starts to solve those issues, we're going to see a consequence in ratings, and that's going to be very positive for spreads.
Okay. In the short term, which corporates do you foresee coming to the market?
Well, in terms of names, we cannot say specific names because we are working with several of the issuers. But we're going to see activity on the oil and gas sector, the media sector. There's a lot of interest, both from investors and from the issuer side, in terms of infrastructure products and projects and renewable energy. That's going to take a little bit more time, but there's media sector also. There's going to be issuance from several sectors.
So it sounds like there's potential for long-tenured transactions. You know,
for what?
Long-tenured transactions.
Yeah.
Well, infrastructure.
That's a good point. Yeah, we're going to need to see, increased and stabilization in terms of the interest in the international market, because that's going to have a consequence on the tenor. And until now, you're right. We've seen issuances of 5 years, 7 years, few 10 years. But yeah, in order to have a longer tenors, we're going to need to see more activity. Yes.
So final question. I just wanted to know, following on from the need for longer tenors to finance infrastructure projects, what are the challenges there? Is getting long-term investor appetite one of the challenges?
Definitely, yeah.
What are some of
as
the
you
other
said,
challenges?
as you said, that in order to finance infrastructure products, you need, attractive rates and at longer tenors, and for that you need to have, interest from those type of investors, and those type of investors are very focused on stability. So these issues we discussed before in terms of, stabilizing inflation, effects, fiscal deficit, etc., are going to be key. The regulatory environment, signals that this is that the new regulatory environment is here and it's not going to change. Is going to be key. So yeah.
Okay. So it looks like there's a lot of challenges ahead for Argentina.
Lots of challenges and lots of opportunities.
Yes.
So yeah.
Brilliant. Horacio Aguilar with Puente, thank you very much.
Thank you.